Decision 300 plus 1. Dr. Gibson. Dr. Gibson, I'm going to hit you up with something kind of hard here. I want to know, how come our brothers, our black doctors, men and women, have not been talking about health care? I want to know exactly what's really happening with health care and from your perspective, and that's what I want to know. I think everybody wants to know. Go ahead, Dr. Gibson.
Well, I think that if we look at life holistically, we are, as black physicians, are in the same position that other people are in. We're fighting for dollars just like everybody else. And with the advent of people losing their jobs, losing their health care, that means that we do not have the patient volumes coming into our office. So we are in a process, just as this young man said about the Dallas Weekly, we're having to evolve, recreate ourselves. So in the midst of trying to stay afloat, to keep our employees, to keep our practices, our interest is, how do we do that? How do we survive? So when a person is in a survival mode, they're not thinking about other people at that time. They're thinking about, how do I sustain myself, the people who are my employees who are depending on me.
And first of all, tell us exactly, what is your practice?
I am a podiatrist here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
And you graduated from what school, in what state?
I graduated from the Ohio College of Podiatric Medicine in Cleveland, Ohio.
See, I'm from Cleveland, so I'm going to always plug Cleveland. I know there's some haters out there, but don't worry about it. We're going to roll with it anyway. So from your perspective of that, continue to elaborate on what you were talking about.
I feel that there are black doctors who are out there talking about the issue. It's just that we possibly have not created a forum, and I think the Esther Davis show is one of those forums, because Dr. Morris Stribling from San Antonio, Texas, he is the president of the National Podiatric Medical Association, which is the African American podiatrists in this country. And Dr. Stribling was ready to come, but there was an emergency in San Antonio, and he was not able to come, but we are talking about it. I think that what we probably need to do is officiate a think tank, put ourselves together more, because factions of us are talking about it, but we need to talk about it probably maybe starting at a state level and then expanding that.
That's the purpose. See, right, you see Decision 300 is rolling again. We've already got ourselves a purpose. So, Monroe, did you have anything that you want to talk about with, as far as healthcare from a Christian's point of view? And let's see what you and Dr. Gibson come up with on that version of healthcare.
Well, you know, Dr. Gibson, I believe that there is a healer that's able to heal all of us. That's where our faith comes in, but that's not what we're talking about, because we're talking about doctors that treat symptoms. And that's where you come. And I think that I see the point where you as a doctor have gone through and went through your profession, and you too have to, like everyone else, think about what the economy is doing to you. Exactly. But again, somewhere we have to put our trust to believe that if we do what we've been trained to do, that there's somewhere, that there's a God that's going to help us move to where we need to be. Because I do believe somewhere it says, I've been young and I've been old, but I've never seen a righteous forsaken nor a seed begging for bread. So therefore, if you take that concept, I just believe my God will do something to help himself here. Now you might say that's a little far-fetched, but that's my faith. That's what I believe.
I don't have any oppositions to your faith, because it is faith that takes me from day to day to day as well.
That's right, that's right.
So I have absolutely a positive regard for what you just said. I think that in what I do, I see patients who come into my practice with cancer. I see patients who come in for a foot ailment, but the feet didn't just walk in, a whole human body did. And so in the course of a day, I may say something to someone to remind them of what you just said. And so I believe that God works through medicine. I believe that ultimately God is the healer, so I don't have any opposition to God.
And that is right.
Go ahead.
Because God always saw, he never saw the illness, he saw the person. And that's what he always worked on. And I think if we do the same thing, God will move on our behalf, even with health care.
Let me ask you, then I'm going to bring Gordon in here. I wanted to ask real quickly, as Gordon asked his question, how are your payments handled? And are you mainly dealing with a lot of your customers or your patients now that don't have health care, or are you dealing with those that are job related? And so, how is your income coming in?
Well, I still have a portion of income that comes in through insurance, but again, there are patients that I've had who may have a problem who now don't have health insurance. So if they come to me, they call me, they've been a part of my practice. They're not just a part of a practice, they're part of my family. Mm-hmm. So if they come and say, I have an issue, then I'm going to address that issue for and with them. Mm-hmm. So it's handled through basically insurance at this point.
Okay, real quickly, Gordon.
Mm-hmm. For you to be commended for practicing what the scriptural account of serving the least of these. And I know that you try to do with your practice, but at the top of the table here in the public eye has been the healthcare reform bill. Yes. That did pass the House of Representatives, and it'll be up to the Senate probably next December, or maybe even of the first of the year. And it did pass just barely with the public option, mm-hmm. and that seemed to be one of the most controversial aspects of the bill. If the bill is passed and it goes into effect the way that it is set up now, how would that affect your practice and your ability to serve your clients, your patients?
I can't answer that, because I don't think anybody really knows at this point what Washington has decided and what they're going to do. But I read an article from the Berkeley Institute of Law that talked about the healthcare option, and what they proposed that the option would be is that we have a chance to have a public insurance competing with a private sector insurance. And from that article, I like what I read, because what it says is that if I'm a rich insurance company and just want to get healthy people so that I don't have to pay any of my dollars out, and then I want to let the public option get all the sick people, if you give me an option, I'm a healthcare provider, but I'm spending $7,000 a year on healthcare just for myself. And I think that's a little outrageous for me to have to pay, and then other expenditures that I have to pay as well. So I would welcome an insurance that would be inclusive of my specialty as well as others, and that would allow me to cut that expense in half.
$7,000.
I'm spending $7,000 just on myself for health care insurance.
Yeah, and
I think that's a little outrageous. And most people cannot afford that. If I had to have every employee and spent that kind of money, I would just have to shut the practice down.
And I think this is the point of Decision 300, because we hear the talking heads on the other news channels and the other networks discussing our health care, which is affecting us adversely, particularly here in the black community. And I know for me, health care is really burdened because I'm self-employed. And it's unaffordable almost, for my wife and I to really have health care. Thank goodness and that God is taking care of us and keeping us healthy, but I have to really make sure that I do the right things, because I'm part of that 40 and 50 million that's uninsured, and that just came that way. So what we're going to start doing here is we're going to have a longer, deeper discussion, so that the next time that we bring you on, we're going to have the entire segments dictated or just dedicated to you and the other doctors that are going to be here present, because I think this is a very, very critical issue. I also want to say thank you to Brother Monroe Mays. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. We're going to get together. That's what we're going to discuss. See, when you find somebody, big pieces of bread drop off big crumbs. So I always try and hang out with the big pieces of bread so that I can get something rolling. So I'm definitely going to be in contact with you, brother. And of course, Gordon, you and I go back way, 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 way back. So I'm glad to have you on the show as we kick off Decision 300. And if there are any questions, also, Lincoln is going to need something to help keep itself going too. So get in contact with the Lincoln School so that you can donate a little money so we can make sure that Lincoln continues to thrive. And Decision